Welcome to Mindset Mondays, where we empower contractors like you with the tools, systems, and frameworks, not just to succeed in business, but in life as well. Join us as we explore the strategies that will elevate your work, insights that will clear your path, and stories that will inspire your journey. Because here, it's about more than just the build. It's about crafting a legacy. All right. Welcome back to Mindset Mondays, brought to you by Contractor Plus, your home for all things growth related in your contracting business. I'm your host, Gerritt Bake. Welcome back. What a beautiful weekend. I was just commenting to Justin, the founder of Contractor Plus, how I actually got a tan this weekend. It almost turned into a burn because we are mid-April and this is the first time my skin has seen more than 30 minutes of sunshine. Go figure. But I managed to make it just a little bit of color on my skin, which I'm really excited about. If you're joining us live, go ahead and drop your name, your business name, and where you're from in the comments, and we will for sure shout you out. We love to do that with the members of this community. Now, as we're getting started, just a couple things so that you know. Here towards the end of the call, we are going to have Justin come on and talk about some really cool updates coming to Contractor Plus. I mean, if you aren't using Contractor Plus right now, you better get on board, man, because this thing is turning into quite the program to help you with everything from not just lead generation, but keeping track of all your leads, your bids and your estimates, running your jobs, paying your people, offering financing. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So if you are not on board, you need to get on board. We got Ground Fog, always seems to be the first person to say something. So he's got the emoji hand wave. Welcome, my friend. Great to see you. As we're going through this, again, like we're starting to hit our stride, right? And if you think about it, contractors, busy season is April to October-ish, right? And so all we're looking at now is what are we doing to be able to take advantage of this, right? Because that's what this game is about. The game is about taking advantage of the opportunities in front of you. We got Johnny, good morning from Anchorage, Alaska. You guys still got snow on the ground up there, bro? I've got a buddy that lives up in Alaska and he's signed up for some kind of crazy mountain race where it's not really a run. It's more of like climb a mountain as quick as you can and try and not die because of the elevation gain and the fact that you're up there and not breathing. But, well, one day maybe I'll make it to Alaska. We got Steve Johnson. Good morning from good old California. Welcome. Appreciate you being here. So listen, now is the time, right? We talk about the off season, then we talk about the preseason, then we talk about the season. And just like in any other sport, it's the same thing for contractors. I would love for you guys to be steady all year long. And there are some of you that are, but there's a lot of you that aren't. And that's okay. Okay. But the activity that we're doing in the off season, the activity that we're doing in the preseason, the activity that we're doing in the season is what's going to generate the results. We've got Michael Babbitt from BMF Services, Build More Fences out of Michigan. We got Trey Martin, Boom Property Solutions. Welcome to the show. Now, listen, we are here again. This is the season, right? The off season, the preseason, they're behind us. It is the season. The sun is shining. The grass is green. The flowers are blooming. The trees are turning green. It's time, right? But what is it time for? Is it time for you to do what you did last year, which was barely survive? Or is it time to do what you want to do this year, which is thrive? And the crazy thing about being a contractor is it has less to do with your ability to get the work done and more to do with your ability to run a business. Got Jonathan Sadler on with us. Good morning, Jonathan. Again, you guys on the East Coast are good afternoon. I could tell you West Coasters, you guys are still good morning. Love it. But here's the deal, right? Last week, I was interviewing a gentleman who's involved in a lot of multifamily building. He's been an investor for many years, and he talked about the fact that he would prefer working with an average contractor who has great communication skills than he would an excellent contractor who never answers his phone. Now think about that for a minute. You may be the most skilled contractor, attention to detail, so on and so forth. But if you suck at communication, you're not going to get more work. People value communication. And again, that communication is one of those things that we talk about as far as running your business. We've got Les Chappell with Chappell Solar Panel Cleaning. We've got Houston Services LLC asking a pretty good question, which we'll answer later on in the show. But again, communication is one of those things that has nothing to do with your ability to get a work done. It has everything to do with running a business. We're going to have a guest come on here shortly that's going to talk about one of the other issues that a lot of contractors have, and that is running their books, right? Now, think about this. Right now, if I was to say, can you pull up your P&L? Half of you would tell me, I don't know even what a P&L is. The other half, maybe. Now, understand what a P&L is. It's a profit and loss statement, right? And if you aren't using QuickBooks, I can't help you. Yes, there's some alternatives out there, but bro, don't make it harder on yourself. Just use QuickBooks. It's what everybody's using, okay? But here's the thing. If you don't know your numbers, how can you make decisions that are ultimately going to impact your business? Now, one of the things we're working on in the background here is creating a financing company in partnership with Contractor Plus. I will drop the name. It's going to be called Mint. Trust me, once you see the logo, you're not going to forget it. But the reason that we're doing it is because there's so many contractors that struggle understanding cash flow. They struggle with it, right? They don't get it. And it's not really that they don't get it. It's that they don't take the time to understand it. And you guys have heard me say this multiple times on the show before. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is king. At the end of the day, I don't care how much you make. What I care is how much you keep. Did you know 62% of contractors have cash flow problems? 62%. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say cash flow problems, let me enlighten you. This would be when you try to put your card into the ATM to pull money out, or at the gas station, or at the grocery store, and it says declined, insufficient funds. That is a cash flow problem. When you're constantly pulling your hair out, wondering if you're going to make payroll in 2 weeks, cash flow problem. When you're not sure if you can afford the truck that you need because of the growth that you're experiencing, cash flow problem. Okay? You guys don't have a problem doing the work. Some of you do, but not the guys in this group. What you have a problem with is understanding cash flow, is understanding what it really means to make and ultimately keep money. I don't care if you're selling solar, you're selling roofs, you're selling drywall, you're selling landscaping, framing, painting. You guys can sell, but what you are struggling with is cash flow. And on that note, one of the reasons that we run this show is because we want to give you guys the frameworks. We want to give you guys the tools. We want to give you guys access to the things that you're going to need to continue to grow your business. And we've got some programs coming up here shortly. But inside of that, we are also bringing experts into the group. Experts that you guys will have access to, experts that you can ask questions to. And for those of you that are here live, congratulations. If you got a cash flow question, you're going to be able to answer it. Not by me, because I'm a self-proclaimed, let's see, what's the proper word? Idiot when it comes to financing. I'm not an expert, but I have experts in my circle. And one of those experts is my good friend, Jeremy Lott. So Jeremy is joining us on the show today. Let me give you a quick background on Jeremy. Jeremy actually used to own a landscaping company. In fact, for 15 years, he owned a landscaping company. It was pretty successful. But guess what he suffered from? The very same thing that you are. Cash flow, right? And he's going to give you a little bit about his story, but that's his background. And he had a coming to Jesus moment, which I'll let him share. And inside of that, turned to, I won't say the dark side. I used to think it was the dark side, but the truth is, these are the guys that'll make you money. So you better find a good one. But he went back to school, got his master's degree, became an accountant. And for the last 15 or so years has been an accountant specifically for contractors and helping educate them with all things finance, especially, you guessed it, cash flow. Jeremy also has some really cool, exciting background stories that if we got time, we'll share with you guys. He used to wrestle in college. That's right, wrestling. So I actually want to introduce again my good friend, Jeremy Lott. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you making some time to share with us. Your volume's a little low, so I don't know if we got to adjust that on your side. Make sure everybody can hear you properly. Let's try that. We got you?
How's that?
A little better. You're going to have to talk loud, but we got you. All right. So, Jeremy, I want to get right into it because we've got guys in here, and as you were listening to me talk a little bit, we got guys in here who are suffering from cash flow problems, right? They just don't get it. And it's really going to get worse because they're getting into busy season, right? What busy season means is more jobs, but it also means more people and more equipment and more things that break down and ultimately more money coming in and out of the business. Yeah. So let's dive right in, Jeremy. Give me the Reader's Digest version. What qualifies you to be able to talk to contractors about cash flow problems?
Yeah, like you said, I did have a landscape company for 15 years. I did high-end residential design build. So we did the fun stuff, and I loved it. It was fantastic. And we did, like I said, a lot of the fun stuff, the pools and the water features and planting trees by crane and all that kind of stuff. And I always had problems with cash flow, like you already said. And I solved all my cash flow problems by selling 3 more jobs. If you could sell 3 more jobs, you could get 3 more down payments, and that can float your cash flow for a little bit longer, right? Well, that all caught up to me in 2008. And I ended up bankrupt because nobody was doing landscape design anymore. And so I didn't have any more clients. So there were not 3 more jobs anymore to keep my cash flowing. And I ended up bankrupt that year. And it was kind of the ultimate in failures, right, for business, and felt just horrible and really wasn't sure what I was going to do for myself. And a few months later, things got worse because I went in to get my taxes done with my accountant, and we were sitting there at his desk chatting back and forth about the different things related to my taxes for that year. And we got on the topic of my bankruptcy. And he stopped what he was doing and he looked up at me across the desk and he said, "Yeah, I've seen that coming for several years now."
Mm.
And so I was kind of shocked by that, obviously, and pretty upset. And I thought about that a lot for the next several weeks. And the thought that kept going through my mind was that surely I wasn't the only one that was having those kind of problems. And that I'm sure I'm not the only one that doesn't have a relationship with their accountant where I'm discussing my financial health and being able to understand what's going on with my money. So I decided to become that person. And so I started up my accounting practice, and I ended up going back to school, like you mentioned, to get my master's. And I did 4 years of audit. And the whole time I was reading books and learning all these things, I'm noticing all the different problems that I had as a business owner and finding all these solutions to be able to implement, to be able to avoid those problems in the future. And so I kind of packaged that all together, and that's what I do now. I do bookkeeping, and I do consulting on improving cash flow and increasing profits.
Beautiful. And thank you for sharing that. It sounds like you got some allergies, my man. I apologize.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the call, I was talking about, it's that season, which is all things
Yep.
good and bad, all rolled into one. I think it was interesting, the comments that you made is like, hey, to solve my cash flow problems, all I got to do is sell 3 more jobs.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Sell 3 more jobs. And how many contractors think exactly that same way? If I just sell another job or another 2 jobs or another 3 jobs, then I can survive the next 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks, right? But it's that cycle of insanity, right? How do you know you're stuck in the cycle? You do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. If I just do this thing, it will get me to where I want to go. And the truth is, it's just pulling you farther and farther away. So let me ask you, right? All the contractors you deal with on a daily and a weekly basis, like, I want to get down into like the nitty gritty, right? So if I'm playing this 3 job game that you were talking about, like, what's the first thing I should do to get out of it?
Ooh. So the very first thing that you need to get out of that game is to review your bidding process, your estimating process. The first cash flow problem that most people have is that they're bidding per unit. So it's per square foot or per linear foot or per device or per yard, right? And hire a lawyer. Yeah, there you go. So in order to get out of this cash flow problem, you need to make sure that you have a profit on every job. And when you're bidding per unit, you don't really know what your profit is, or even if you're covering all of your costs.
So real quick, for the guys that maybe not understand exactly what you're talking about, when you're saying bid per unit, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So you sit down, you look at a set of plans, right? And you do your takeoffs. So you figure out how many square feet there are on the project. And then you do, I'm going to charge this much per square foot. And then that's the price that goes to the customer, is this much per square foot.
So the
Or for
guys who are
concrete,
charging per square foot, which I know a lot of roofers, a lot of painters, a lot of drywall, like there's a lot of trades and folks who do per square foot. Why is that a bad thing?
because I don't know if I'm covering my costs with that number, and I don't know how much profit I have built into that.
Again, going back to the conversation of, are you actually keeping money at the end of the day? So, okay, I'm bidding per square. Like, what do I need to do?
What we need to do is we need to back up and take a look at all of your costs, including overhead costs, which is often misunderstood.
Okay, so how do I figure out my overhead costs?
Right. So we used the other day, we used an M&M's example, right, to be able to figure things out. So if you take a package of M&Ms and you open it up, you dump it out on the table, then you have this pile of M&Ms there. First thing you need to do is sort those M&Ms into different colors, right? And when you do that, that's actually like the bookkeeping process, putting things together so that you can now have a profit and loss that the IRS can use or banks can use to see just how profitable that you are. So after you've done that, then we need to put the information together so it's actually usable. So usually what I do when we're talking about this is we say the green M&Ms represent all of your revenue, all of your sales. And then there's the red, yellow, and blue M&Ms. We group all those together because the blue M&Ms represent your direct labor. The red M&Ms represent your direct materials, as well as other direct costs like your subcontractors and your equipment rental for a specific job, those kind of things. And then you have the yellow M&Ms, and that is your overhead. So when we talk about the different color of M&Ms for your job, what we're talking about is what goes on the truck to the job site, right? So it's pretty obvious that we put our people on the truck to go to the job site. So that's our direct labor, right? Those people are going to go on the truck to the job site. They're going to do work on that project at the job site. Same thing with the materials. We're going to put the materials on the truck to go to that job site, and those materials are going to be used for that specific job. But there are other things that go on that truck to the job site that we don't really consider when we're putting our pricing together and when we're figuring out our job costing. And some of those are things like our liability insurance and our payroll expenses and our fuel costs and our cell phone bill. All these kind of things go on that truck to the job site, and we need to consider all of those costs when we are putting together our bids so that we make sure that we're covering all of our costs.
So what you're saying, and again, guys, I want you to understand like how important it is what Jeremy's saying right now. Like most of us, when we say, I want to make money, we figure out our material and our labor costs, for example, right? We figure those things out. And then we say, okay, how much of a profit do I want to make? We say 20%, 30%, whatever. And we tack that on and we say, okay, now I'm making a 30% markup or margin, right? Now I'm doing this and I'm actually making money. But what you're missing is all of the other expenses associated with running a business. And for some of you guys, it's employees. For some of you, it's an office, it's a vehicle, right? All of these things are expenses that you're going to have to stroke a check for. It's not free. And if you know it's an expense, then the point is to get you to a place where you're charging enough to cover your materials, to cover your costs, and then actually have a profit left over at the end. Right? That's what this whole game is about. And by the way, if you guys have any specific questions you want to ask Jeremy, go ahead and drop them in the chat. We may not get to them right now, but we will get to them here before the end of today's episode. So go ahead and drop them in the chat. We will get to them for sure. But I want to follow this through with Jeremy. Okay. So Jeremy, biggest issue, they don't track their costs. And at the end of the day,
right,
they're having to pay. Right. I was just talking to last week to a framing carpenter who said, why does it feel like every year I bust my ass to make money, and then come March/April, I'm stroking a big check to the IRS and my bank account is almost back down to zero. Right.
Yeah.
And again, This is what we're talking about. Right. Okay. So the first thing that they got to do is they got to start to figure out what their costs are. Right. And there's fixed and variable costs, which we're not going to get super deep into that, but just understand there's costs outside of, hey, how much is it costing to get my employee per hour? How much is it costing me for my materials? Right. So materials and labor. And that's how most contractors bid a job: materials, labor, and then they mark up, 50%. Okay. I'm making money, but that's not necessarily true. So the first thing they got to figure out is their direct and their indirect costs, right? They're fixed and their variable costs. What's the next thing that they got to focus on?
The next thing is to bid a process. So rather than just sitting down and figuring out all of the materials and labor for the job, you want to instead break that job down into different steps and your process for actually completing the work. And the reason that we want to do that is because then we make sure that we don't miss anything. The problem is that we will sit down and we'll figure out, okay, this job is going to take this much in materials, and it's most likely going to take this much time. But when we do that, we're usually leaving out time for setup, for mark out, for going over things with the customer to get details on that. So we want to make sure to include that in the process so that we're including our time and materials and our overhead allocations for each step in the process. And then once you go through and figure out those three components for each step in the process, the labor, the materials, and the overhead, we add all those up so that we have all of our costs and we know what it's going to cost us to do that job. Then
True
after we do
cost.
that, yeah,
True
exactly,
cost,
our
right?
true costs.
And again, I want you guys to see this. Like, this is the game that you should be playing. Whether, again, you're installing water heaters or a kitchen sink, it doesn't matter, okay? Understand labor, materials, and then your costs, right? Your total all-in costs. Now you have your break-even number, right? And now you can do something with that break-even number. I know how much it's going to cost me to do this job, okay? All in. And now you can do the next step, which I think there's some confusion around it, is understanding markup versus margin.
Yeah, exactly. So I like to look at markup versus margin as a brick, right? You have one solid block, and that solid block represents all of your costs, right? Well, I'm going to take that block and I'm going to break it in half. So now I have two pieces of that same block. I've broken my costs in half. And I'm going to take and I'm going to duplicate one of those halves and I'm going to add it onto the top. So that's basically what it looks like when you're doing a 50% markup, right? You have the full block, you break it in half, you duplicate one of those blocks and add it on. So now you have 3 blocks. 2 blocks represent your costs, and 1 block represents the 50% markup, right? So that's a 50% markup. The problem is that when you're looking at it at the end of the job, and that 3 blocks that you sent over to the customer to bill them for, only 1 of 3 blocks now is your profit. So your markup of 50% turns into a margin of 33%.
Hold on. Let's pause for a second there so these guys can digest it. Markup and margin are not the same thing. Not the same thing. Okay. So you need to understand what your markup is and what your margin is. Okay. Go ahead. Continue.
Yeah, exactly. And so a 50% markup is a 30% margin. And you can go down the line. A 33% markup is a 25% margin. And a 25% markup is a 20% margin. Anyway, so it just kind of works down like that. But I've talked to a lot of people that feel like they lose a lot of money because they marked it up 50%. But hey, when I'm looking at my profit and loss, I only have a 33% profit margin. We didn't lose money. It's just math and the way that it works out.
Exactly. So you guys need to use your numbers the right way so that you can get the result that you want. You want the margin, the profit margin at the end of the day, right? Your markup allows you to get that margin, but understand how it is that they work together. So Jeremy, another question that I have for you, right? So if I'm a contractor and let's just say, I'm still doing everything on my own, right? I'm still doing all the bidding. I'm still doing all the jobs. I'm still following up with things, right? Like everything's happening on my own, myself, right? What would be the easiest way for me to take control of my books?
Ooh, the easiest way to take control of your books is to stop doing them yourself. It's not what you're great at. You didn't get into business because you were good at doing your bookkeeping and really wanted it to be able to do bookkeeping. You probably got into your profession because you were really good at swinging the hammer and doing the production side of things. And your bookkeeping is costing you money because it's something that you could sub out for less than you could make for that same hour. So if you can make, say, $1,000 for an hour of your work, and you spend that time instead doing bookkeeping, which you could sub out for 100, 150 an hour, then you're losing $900 to $850 per hour.
Yeah, Scott made a big insight there. Office time equals downtime, and downtime equals no money time, right?
Yep.
So it's so true. Well, now again, trust me, it's hard to say the first hire that you need to make is an accountant. But trust me when I say, if you can eliminate the thing that is the biggest headache in your life, how much more could you get done? How many hours a week do you spend struggling trying to make sure that your books are caught up, that your books are set up right, that your books are telling you what you need to do? Because if your books aren't, then you're making decisions based on, I don't know, a chance, a whim. Like, who wants that? I want to make decisions based on facts. I want to know that every job that I bid at this number, I'm going to make X number of dollars, right? I want to know that. I don't want to guess. I don't want to keep filling up my fuel tank, looking at my bank account going, why does my money just keep flowing in and out of my account? I don't want that. Now, let's talk numbers, right? And I know it varies, from state to state and region to region, whatever. Let's talk some like round numbers.
Okay.
I need to hire an accountant, right? Now, what's the difference between, let's talk about that for a second. What's the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant? What's the difference?
So the difference is a bookkeeper is usually really good at the process of data entry for, say, QuickBooks, right? And they are going to spend a lot of time in QuickBooks going through your different transactions and entering them in, which will, on the backside, be preparing financial statements. A bookkeeper is usually really good at using QuickBooks and the different tools in QuickBooks, but not always good at understanding the financials and how the money actually works. An accountant is going to be somebody that usually has experience working with financial statements, either as a tax lawyer or either as, sorry, not a tax lawyer, but as a tax accountant or as an audit accountant, right? And that means that they're spending a lot of time with financial statements and they understand the processes behind what is preparing the financial statements. And so that's usually the difference between a regular bookkeeper and an accountant.
Good. And I'm going to dumb it down for these guys because let's just be real. They're contractors just like me. And we like the simplest form of it, right? Okay. So a bookkeeper, they're the person who's going to make sure that the numbers that are going into your QuickBooks are categorized, are filtered, and are put exactly where they need to be, right?
Yes.
Now, if you don't know what that looks like, some bookkeepers can help you with that, but you might need to consult with an accountant first to make sure you're categorizing things properly. An accountant is exactly what Jeremy just said. They're going to do your taxes or they're going to do an audit on your books and your taxes, right? That's what they're going to do. So your first hire is going to be a bookkeeper. It's going to be somebody to help you figure out where things need to go. And then ultimately they know what happens. Hey, this receipt from the gas station comes in, I know where it needs to go. This receipt from Home Depot comes in, I know where it needs to go, right? They know exactly where to categorize everything. So at the end of the year, when your accountant gets involved to do your taxes, everything's where it needs to be. You're not paying Uncle Sam more than you need to. A couple other questions, Jeremy. if my books are a mess, I'm a contractor, my books are a mess right now. Like, what would you recommend step one being? What should I do?
Step one would be to get a cleanup done so that you have clean books. And what I mean by cleanup is an accountant is going to go in and they're going to start looking at all of your different transactions and make sure that they get categorized correctly. Now, most people, and bookkeepers included, will do a pretty good job with the profit and loss, right? It's pretty easy to mark what is coming into the business in sales and what's going out as costs or expenses. The tricky part is the balance sheet items. And that's where an accountant can be really helpful, is by going in and making sure that the bank account balance that is showing on your balance sheet is the same to what is showing to on your balance from the bank on the bank statement. That process is called reconciliation. So you go down through the transactions that you have in, say, QuickBooks, and you go down through the transactions that show up on the bank statement and make sure that they match up. The other
Awesome.
big thing that they're looking at there are your fixed assets, which are the items that your company owns, and your liabilities, which is your different debts to different people for equipment or working capital or for credit cards or any of those kind of things.
Okay. Great explanation. Next question. What should I look for when hiring either a bookkeeper or an accountant? What are a couple things that I should be looking for?
So what you want is somebody that, first of all, has experience with the construction industry, because the construction industry is a little bit different than other industries and the way that they track their accounting. You want to make sure that you are talking with somebody that understands how to do accrual accounting rather than just cash-based accounting. So one of the big differences there is that most people are going to file their taxes based on cash accounting. But when you're starting to look into the numbers and you want to figure out your true costs and be able to use those numbers to help you out with bidding and those kind of things, you want accrual accounting. And the difference there is that with cash accounting, it gets recorded as income on my profit and loss when that money is deposited into my bank account. On the other side, with expenses, it gets recorded as an expense when that money comes out of my bank account, right? Well, the problem is that most contractors are both invoicing customers so that they can be paid later and receiving bills from vendors so that they can pay those bills later, right? So, in order to be able to match up your transactions in a month so that you have all of the expenses related to those different jobs matching up with all the invoices related to those jobs, you have to be able to do that accrual accounting, which means that as soon as I send an invoice to a client, then it shows up on the profit and loss. Or as soon as I receive a bill from a vendor, then it goes on the profit and loss. So again, the difference is the bank account. With cash, it's not recorded on the profit and loss until it comes into or goes out of the bank account. With the accrual accounting, it's recorded when it comes or when you send out the invoice or when you receive a bill. And so that makes a big difference on your costs and being able to track how much money you're actually making month to month on those different jobs.
Yeah, makes sense. Let me ask you, if I'm looking to hire, let's just say a bookkeeper, like what's a price I should be looking at to be like, okay, this is probably a halfway decent bookkeeper and I'm not getting raked over the coals?
Yeah. So a lot of the bookkeeping industry is going to fixed pricing now, as opposed to hourly pricing. With hourly pricing, if you come across somebody that's doing hourly pricing, somewhere between 50 and 150 an hour is pretty common. With the fixed pricing, anywhere between like $300 and the very, very bottom, if you're very simple, up to, well, I have one client right now they're a $10 million customer, and they're going on to be at like 40 million this year. But for them, I'm charging 2,800 a month. So it's nothing to be up 2,800 to 6,000 if you are a really large company.
Yeah, it makes sense. Again, on the low end, guys, $300, but depending on the size of your business, right? If you're starting out, $300 for sure. But if the size of your business, you're in the 7 figures plus, then you're looking at, $1,000 plus. But again, how much is that worth to you? If you didn't have to worry about your books, how quick could you make $1,000 to cover your monthly fee, right? Like it's a no-brainer, right? And your books are up to date, your numbers are where they need to be, and you're making decisions based off of facts and not feelings. Jeremy, just real quick, like if these guys have more questions or if they want to, maybe work with you, they have, want to know what it is that you offer. What would be the best way for these guys to get a hold of you?
Best way is call or text. The number's 801-440-4540, or they could email me, and my email is jeremy@foundationacs.com.
Jeremy@foundationacs.com. And we'll put that in the comments here so that you guys can send him any questions that you may have. Jeremy@foundationacs.com. And again, like, don't be the guy that's stubborn, right? And says, I don't need somebody. I can do this on my own. Cool. Congratulations. Your business won't grow because you're stuck doing the work that you shouldn't be doing, right? This whole game is about how do we put ourselves in a position to win? And we do that by putting the right team in place. And part of your right team is to have the right accountant in your corner. Jeremy, appreciate you making some time to share with the group today. Listen, if you have any other questions when it comes to accounting, Jeremy's a perfect resource for you. But we want to be able to get you in front of the right people that can help you make the right decisions. Trust me, Jeremy made 15 years of decisions. I've made, dozens of years of experience in decisions. You don't have to go through them all. And if you're suffering or struggling right now, we have the solution for you. So take advantage of it. That's what we want to do for you here. Now, as far as Contractor Plus, Jeremy, I'm going to take you off the screen real quick. As far as Contractor Plus, what I want you to know is there's a lot of cool things coming down the pipe, right? And a lot of these things are meant to help you continue to grow your business, but to do it in a structured and an organized way. Information's moving fast. People are moving fast. Communication's moving fast. If you don't have a central place to keep track of all things business, you're going to get lost. And business is going to fall through the cracks, and ultimately your business is not going to grow. So I want to bring Justin on real quick. We've got some exciting things happening here shortly when it comes to Contractor Plus. So Justin, talk to me, man. What are some of these cool updates we got coming down the pipe?
Yeah, so we have a lot. Thankfully, we've grown our team to the point where we can focus on more than one thing at a time. What's coming immediately here in the next week or so is our long-awaited dashboard. So the new dashboard, and the reason it's such a big deal is because when you log into, a solution that you're hoping will systemize your entire business, and that's what you're hoping Contractor Plus will do for your business, it's really important that the dashboard is extremely actionable. It's something that if something requires your attention in your company, it needs to be on that dashboard. Whether that's something to do with a payment or one of your team members clocking in or out, or eventually a piece of equipment that's left a geo-fenced area, or a report is ready. There's 115 so far, and I'm sure we'll add more different types of what we're calling action items. And these action items will show up on a list right on your dashboard that require your action. You actually have to, you can snooze it or delete it, but you can hit take action. And from that drop down, depending on that individual notification, you will have options. So if it's your client viewed your or approved an estimate, you may be able to generate the invoice, or there's a set of actions that you can take that are relevant to each individual notification. So that's important because it saves you a lot of time. You don't have to open different windows to go track, numbers down. You have everything you need on one screen. We also have widgetized it. And what that means is you can edit the view for both yourself and your team members. So you can choose what the dashboard needs to look like for your business. And also, you're not going to see this right away, but we do have some pretty cool planning widgets and some extra widgets we're actually going to add in collaboration with American Contractor Network. So going to be some really cool stuff there. So immediately after the dashboard goes live, that's the next immediate focus. Oh, one other thing about the dashboard is we have walkthrough videos of every module in our entire solution. Yep. So now one of the biggest complaints is people sign up and it's like, this is a lot to take in. I need to square off some time to learn this platform. And it's not good if you don't have any videos to educate people. So we fixed that problem. So immediately after this, we've been building Estimates V2. Now we call it Estimates V2, but it's actually not just estimates. It's also making templates, or using our template system for not just line items, but now groups as well. So you can save group templates. You can also duplicate a line item or duplicate a group in real time on the estimate. It will auto save, so no more losing data if you're halfway through an estimate. We are adding different line item types. You can add optional line items. You can add multiple optional line items to any group, and you can choose, do I want my client to be able to select just one of these options, or do I want them to be able to select more than one, and which of these options are recommended, or should they be pre-selected? So now you can use your estimates as proposals, or it's truly a sales tool, giving your customers options: good, better, best, quartz or granite. You get to put the options there and let your customer do the choosing. When the customer's in control, when they're in the driver's seat, you're going to close more deals. So it's a good thing for business. So, and then also we've added material line items. We've added tool and equipment line items. So if you need to pass equipment rental fees onto your clients, you can track that separately. We've also improved vastly, like we're adding a little ratio lock, where if you increase if you are bidding by the square foot or linear foot, you can have it proportionally increase the materials in that assembly to the square foot on the task. So just a lot of things to make your life a lot easier. The estimation is a big deal, and that's on the back end where you would build the estimates, but then on the front end, we're also giving you templates. So now you can choose what you want that estimate to look like. We're going to give you some different design options, more flexibility and control for you. There's just a lot. One other big change about the estimates is we're going to let you call it what you want. You can choose to call it quotes, estimates, proposals, bids, scopes. You can call it whatever you want. You can even use a custom name. And whenever you change the name of that, it's going to rename the module through the entire solution. So instead of estimates, you'll see quotes on the menu if you change it to quotes. And I'm sure I just scratched the surface of everything we're working on there, but there's a lot coming in parallel with Estimates V2. We are completely revamping our schedule. We are adding support for unassigned. That means you can schedule an event without assigning someone to it. And the reason that's important is because you can see where everything's at, and then you can choose who you need to assign based on their availability. And when you search for a team member, whoever's available will come up at the top of that list automatically. And then secondary to that, whoever is nearest or closest, that service address will come up at the top of the available list. just so, again, you don't have to go and track down, change screens and try to, figure out what makes the most sense. And we're also adding weekly and monthly view to the mobile. So the mobile calendar currently is a daily resource view. That's getting a huge facelift. Tons of improvements coming down the pipeline for that. There's a lot of other stuff that it's kind of smaller, but it does have a big impact. You're going to notice coming together very quickly as well. Awesome. Somewhat, Trey, I believe Trey Martin just asked, what about payment schedule templates? Payment schedule templates. So I believe you're talking about, I believe you're referring to like phase-based templates. Can you clarify what you mean by that? And I'm happy to answer your questions.
Yeah. And again, if you guys have any questions, you can shoot us an email at hello@contractorplus.app. That'll get to where it needs to get to and make sure we get your questions answered. But listen, this is what you need to understand more than anything, right? Contractor Plus is your all-in-one solution for all things business related, right? Not only does it have the calendar feature, it has a scheduling feature. Not only does it have the bid and the estimate feature, but it also has, the ability for you to put your pricing inside of there. So you don't every single time have to start over at zero. You can adjust pricing, right? You can send payment options and terms to your potential clients. So all of these things are built into Contractor Plus. We want to make your life easier, right? We want to help you build the business that you want, right? Free your time to do the things that you really should be doing. So again, if you have any questions, you can reach out to hello@contractorplus.app, and we'll make sure we get your questions answered. For the meantime, again, appreciate you guys making the time today to spend with us. Jeremy, we appreciate you being on the show with us today. We've got a lot of things coming down the pipe for you, but listen, just take it one step at a time, right? What is the next thing that you need to do? And how can I do that inside of Contractor Plus? What is the next thing that I need to do that's outside of Contractor Plus that's going to help me continue to love being here for you guys. Love giving you the tools and things you need. At the end of the day, you after it. After it, 3, 2, 1, off you go.
It was supposed to go.
And it's going. At some point, we're going.
Contractor Plus is funded not by the deep pockets of venture capital firms in Silicon Valley, but by the real MVPs, our loyal fans and users. You've seen us grow. You've grown with us. Now this is your chance to invest and join us as a bona fide stakeholder in Contractor Plus. No velvet ropes, no accredited investors only. Whether you've got $100 or $100,000, this isn't just for the well-heeled. It's for everyone who believes in us or uses Contractor Plus and wants to help us revolutionize the industry. Check out Contractor Plus on WeFunder. Invest what you can, and let's build the future of contractor collaboration together.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of Mindset Mondays. Thank you for joining us and being a part of this incredible journey to not just be great at what you do, but to live a great life too. Remember, every tool, tip, and story shared here is a step towards building your dream, both on and off the job site.